I was living in Chicago, living alone. That was like a big wealth milestone. I was in my own apartment for the first time. I had a job downtown. I worked directly on the Chicago River. It was great. Life was good. Had a good job working in marketing for an architecture firm, but I just felt like life wasn't any fun. And I saw people online who seemed like they were living, to me at the time, compared to how I felt like they're living more than I am. These people are
Right.
traveling, they're building their own businesses. It looked like they were kind of doing it all, and I thought, all I'm doing is going to work, working 8, 9, 10 hours a day, coming home, watching Netflix and falling asleep. To me, it was not the life that I felt like I had aspired to, and I was afraid that if I stepped on that conveyor belt I was 23 at the time, where's this gonna go? And I became a digital nomad with really no idea what I was doing. I found freelance writing work, and I had never really traveled outside of the US, and I bought a one-way ticket, and I thought, if they can, I can.
That was a snippet of my conversation with Kayla Ihrig. Kayla is a digital nomad, an entrepreneur through and through, and in this episode, Kayla shares her experience from living a regular life as an employee in corporate America to taking a leap of faith to follow a dream of world travel and building a business while doing so. Kayla also shares about her early days as a digital nomad, how to properly balance work and travel, and how to enjoy the moment when you travel and dealing with the anxiety that comes as a result of the uncertainties of running a business and not having the cushion of a 9-to-5, which is something that a lot of us deal with, especially as digital nomads, and we don't talk about enough. And as a published author, Kayla also shared with me how she landed a first book deal by simply sharing about the experience online, and how a writing business went from being a side hustle to being the backbone of her online empire. And that story about landing a book deal is something that I found really fascinating, and I think you should listen to as well. In this episode, we talked about love, we talked about traveling with a partner, about living abroad long term, and we also briefly touched on the best destinations for new and aspiring digital nomads. And I think this episode just has a perfect balance of personal, business growth, and lifestyle tips, and I want you to watch till the very end because it's jam-packed with a lot of information that can help you travel cheaply, efficiently, and just be a better digital nomad, if you will. And if you prefer to listen to this in audio format, you can find this episode on the Nomad Entrepreneur Podcast, wherever you get your shows from. And don't forget to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube right now. Please do that. I really appreciate it. And if you're listening on audio, please follow the show on Apple and Spotify or anywhere that you get your podcast from. The link is going to be in the description on YouTube, and also I'll put the links to Kayla's social media, and you can also get a copy of her book on Amazon as well. So without taking any more of your time, let's dive into this episode with Kayla Ihrig, and I think you will love it. And if you do, don't forget to leave a feedback. Again, my name is Daniel, and let's dive right into it.
All right. Hi, Kayla. How are you? Welcome to the podcast.
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Absolutely. So, we first reached out, you reached out a few weeks ago, and I thought your story was fascinating, being that you're a digital nomad in that sense, even though I think you're based in Netherlands now.
Yeah, I actually don't have a home base at the moment. I was living in the Netherlands for 5 years, but now my husband and I are traveling full time. So we kind of came back to handle some paperwork. We moved out of our apartment 5 months ago, and we've been in Eastern Europe and the US and Mexico, and then we came back to handle some administrative stuff, and now we're gonna head out back to Eastern Europe, actually. So yeah, just drifting at the moment.
That's awesome. So right now you're in the Netherlands. How do you find it compared to, say, the rest of Europe? Because I hear Dutch people can be a little bit cold, and in the sense that it's such a way different environment than, say, the US or Latin America.
Oh, yeah. Actually, after spending 2 months in Mexico and coming back here, I think the first day I thought, no one smiles. No one smiles here, like in Latin America or even the US. Maybe there's Europeans, I tend to hear that they think Americans are kind of fake with their friendliness. And, maybe it's true, but I won't lie. I still miss it. I still miss the smiles, the, hey, how are you? The chit chats.
Right.
I'm a big
Absolutely.
chit chatter. So Yeah, it's an adjustment, but it's nice here. It's raining now. Well, it's actually often raining. That's my only big
Yeah.
complaint.
Actually just started to rain here as well. I'm looking out the window now and it's like, pouring down, but that's fine. It's soundproof, so we should be good. Did mention that you're back. You think people don't smile, people don't talk, and that's something I truly miss about the United States as well. I was just driving down the street yesterday, and a couple was having a run, and they just like waved to me, and like, Jesus Christ, I missed it so much. What is going on? So my friend asked me, like, do you know them? I'm like, no, I don't. Like, but this is like apparently what people do around here now. Because being away for so long is just like super weird when you get back and getting back into like the American culture, which we just like wave and smile and chat. It's so interesting. So that's something to me for sure. So tell me a little bit about your background pre nomadic days. What was that like for you? Take me back a few years before you started traveling, how that came about, why travel in the first place?
I was living in Chicago, living alone. That was like a big wealth milestone. I was in my own apartment for the first time. I had a job downtown. I like worked directly on the Chicago River,
Wow.
up on like in one of those like big historic buildings. It was great. Life was good. Had a good job working in marketing for an architecture firm, but I just felt like life wasn't any fun, And I started
Mm,
asking people, didn't like, do you think life is supposed to be fun? And everyone kind of had the same answer. Like it ought to be, but it's just not. That's not
mm,
reality. And I saw people online who seemed like they were living to me at the time compared to how I felt like they're living more than I am. These people are
right.
traveling, they're building their own businesses. It looked like they were kind of doing it all. And I thought all I'm doing is going to work, working, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, coming home, watching Netflix and falling asleep. To me, it was not the life that I felt like I had aspired to. And I was afraid that if
Mm,
I stepped on that like conveyor belt at I was 23 at the time, where's this gonna go? And I don't know, I kind of disappeared into the world of like social media, like how people were
mm,
living like on social media. People were living in their vans, they were living on sailboats, and it
right.
really inspired me to challenge what I thought was the only way to live, which was to have a normal job and to live in an apartment or a home, and I became a digital nomad with really no idea what I was doing. I found freelance writing work, and I had never really traveled outside of the US, and I bought a one-way ticket, and I thought, if they can, I can, right? Like I kept that was my
Right.
motto. If they could, I can. And
Wow.
that has taken me into now 6 years of being abroad. And I naturalized to the Netherlands. I actually lived here for 5 years and got Dutch citizenship. And I wrote a
Wow.
book on digital nomadism. It was the beginning of like a really, really colorful journey that I'm still on now.
That is such an interesting story because like all of the things like you've gone on to do or achieve, from being someone who never like lived that life or even have any experience whatsoever, and being able to go on and just like break all of the invisible barriers, and write a book, do all of the digital nomad things, like the blueprint digital nomad life, like having a remote job, starting a company, and writing a book, all of these things. It's so inspiring to hear. Now, tell me a little bit about those early days, moving outside of the U.S., living abroad for the first time. I'm pretty sure it must not have been as fun as you have imagined it to be. At least in a lot of people's cases, they find it a little bit jarring. Like, okay, this isn't what I signed up for. At least that's what I've heard in terms of like stories of people living abroad, being nomadic for the first time. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I felt that as well. It was very jarring, and for me, I would say that first month I went to Mexico. As a brand new digital nomad,
Classic.
I experienced digital nomadism kind of like falling off its pedestal because I had this realization that I'm the same person that I was back in
Mm,
Chicago. I worked all day still. Like there were days where I just worked at the hostel I was staying at, and then I wouldn't leave until after dark. And I kind of
wow.
realized, I'm like I'm the problem. I'm the common denominator. Travel didn't solve my problem. So on top of all the jarring experiences and the culture shock that you have going abroad, I also was really surprised by the experience of how much I learned about myself. And I think travel is like very much a mirror, and it
Mm,
makes you realize, it confronts you with parts of yourself that maybe you never noticed, or maybe things that you were avoiding. Like
right.
I couldn't blame my surroundings anymore if I wasn't a fun person. Like that was a bigger shortcoming than my lack of vacation days.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. I think the story is the same in a lot of ways. I mean, we have some similarity there because my first time, like ever trying out the nomadic lifestyle, I bought a one-way ticket to Mexico, just flew it
Yeah.
out. I'm like, you know what? This is the life now. Let's do this. But I find myself just stuck in my Airbnb for, days at a time. I wouldn't even go out and explore. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is not it. This isn't what I saw on Instagram or the YouTube videos that I watched. I am missing something. There's a part of this puzzle that is still, that is still off. And that was what I sought to fix. And in your case, it looked like you did fix it. Walk me through those initial steps of, realizing that something had to change. Maybe you started like a business, a freelance business. I mean, freelance writing in your case. What was those initial days like? The concepts and rebranding the whole thing to a situation where it afforded you more freedom and say some flexibility in your schedule and being able to now go on to have more fun living the nomadic lifestyle.
It was not a quick fix, an overnight fix. I in Mexico in that first week I had the realization that, I'm not having as much fun here as I necessarily thought. And it was still
Yeah.
the high of I'm doing it. I'm living my dream, but
Mm,
realizing, oh, I need to do my part too. Like it's 50% surroundings and 50%
right.
what I am bringing to the table every day. And it took me months. I think that travel is actually something that some people have to get good at,
Mm,
and I wasn't good at, being in the moment, like putting my work away and not thinking about it. It took a
yeah.
long time, and it's easy for me to see how bad I was at it because I met my husband a month into my nomadic journey, and now
Wow, that was fast.
yeah. And then I ended up moving to his country 6 months later. We got married the next year, and now he's nomadic as well. And he is very, very good at being in the moment. Like
Mm,
he loves life, and life loves him right back. And I feel like
wow.
life and I kind of struggle with each other sometimes. It's I had to get good at it. And I think it's okay to say that. It's okay to say
Mm,
I'm working at enjoying the free time, or you know what I mean? And
right,
it's
I
maybe
do.
really it's hard to understand for those like who haven't traveled yet and who want to. It's hard to imagine that
Absolutely.
you're but I don't know, it's kind of a skill. I mean, happiness is a skill.
It
I'm pretty
is.
sure. And you might need to improve that in yourself before
Right.
you're
And I just want to, double click on that a little bit because I totally like 100% agree with what you just said, that the way you've described it, because I don't think there are perfect words to describe that feeling of not being in the moment enough. And you rightly said it's a skill because I catch myself in moments where I'm just like, I know, like, for this moment, in this moment right now, I am definitely not maximizing it or enjoying as much as I should. And knowing or coming to that realization and just like catching yourself in those moments, I think is the skill or
yeah.
is a part of the solution to the quote unquote problem. And I think over time, people just get better at it. And the ones who don't are the ones who burn out and go back home and just say, you know what, I throw in the towel. This lifestyle is not for me. And for you, what was that process like? Say, okay, now you've realized, you've understood, or maybe is it just because found someone who you were able to like feed off of their energy, or what was it like for you?
I think learning that other people experience their time, or you could experience life, but for me it's like experiencing their day, like their day to
Mm,
day. Seeing how differently some other people experience that is so impactful. In this case, I saw that from my husband, but of course from other people as well. Like, you see other people, you meet so many people traveling. If you stay in
Right.
hostels, this is particularly true, but even if you, I think that socializing on the road is also a bit of a skill,
It
but
is.
the more people you meet, the more you see that other people are processing things very
Hmm.
differently and handling their life very differently. And at that time, I was really obsessed with this quote from Annie Dillard: "How we spend our days is how we spend our lives."
Hmm.
And I saw how other people were spending their days very differently than I was. And that it was a very long, slow process for me. Well, that honestly
Right.
took me years to get good at. I I didn't know how to stop thinking about work, and I like
Yeah.
whenever I was at the beach, I was thinking about my inbox, and whenever I was
That
in
was
my
so me.
inbox, I was thinking about the beach.
I mean, this is so particularly true for me because, especially when you leave, say, a stable job and, you just like live the comfort of that, 9 to 5 paycheck and you just don't understand, didn't know where the next paycheck is going to come from. Maybe you have limited savings and you're just looking at your runway and it's so short. And you're just like,
Mm,
Jesus Christ, what am I doing? Am I even doing the right thing? Like, of course, I see other people doing this life, and I know that you can derive some form of happiness from this. But am I also throwing my life away in a way? So these are some of the things that at least that I went through in those initial days, where I'm laying at the beach and I'm feeling extremely guilty. Like, what am I doing? I mean, such that I later on came to a conclusion, like a premature conclusion, I should say, that you know what, I don't enjoy the beaches. I don't enjoy going to the beach. I would always say that to myself just to mask those
mm.
internal conflicts that I had with myself. And one thing was, I mean, when I was in Puerto Vallarta, I mean, at one time, and I would have, invites, and that was the first time I would stay in a hostel. Cause I just were like, you know what, I'm gonna give you Sailita, and so, stay in a hostel and meet people, and let's go, watch the sunset, and sit by the beach and do this. I'm just like, I don't know if I necessarily want to do that because I have client work to do and whatnot. And there was a guy from Colombia, and he just said to me one day, like, "Why are you here?" you know,
Mm.
and that was a profound moment for me because, like, it was a question that really hit deep to me. Like, why are you here? And I just had to sit by myself and figure it out and just be honest with myself. Why are you here? Something needs to change. But I got
That's
better at it
profound.
eventually. Yeah, it is. And coming from a guy who I would say by many means, don't have the same opportunities that I do, it sounded, I mean, it sounded so particularly true in that moment. But you have gone on to, do things obviously, and lived in the Netherlands and whatnot. I mean, you've written a book as well. Tell me about, the idea for the book. What was the initial thought process like? Like writing a book is no small feat. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I always thought I would write a book because I'm a freelance writer. I love to write. And of course, I think everyone who likes to write or does write thinks about, well, maybe someday a book.
Right.
And I was sharing little snippets of the travel lifestyle on LinkedIn when, a year ago, actually, somebody sent me a message that said, "Hey, I saw your content about being a digital nomad. Have you ever considered writing a book about it?
Mm.
Can we talk?" And I thought it was like a scam or something. I immediately thought this person is trying to sell me something. They're going to like offer me a coaching package. And I ignored
Right.
it for 3 weeks. And then I finally followed up, and here was a publishing house that wanted
Wow.
to extend a book deal offer, which felt completely undeserved. I felt really inequipped to, in that I never thought
Mm.
about it. I never thought, I didn't wake up one day and think I am the best person in the world to write a book about
Right
digital
about.
nomadism. But they extended the offer, and I thought, well, my husband really kind of talked me into it. He said, you, not many people have their dream offered to them,
Wow.
and who if you turn that down, like, what are you doing? And I thought, oh, okay, you're right. And I love the topic so much. I can honestly say that I wrote the book in 6 months, and I enjoyed 85% of it. I enjoyed it so much. And I didn't make it about my experience alone
Mm.
because I'm one person. And I really made it about the movement. And I went back and I even found what I believe, and I say in the book, I'm almost positive, the first digital nomad who started traveling and working online in 1983. And I
Wow.
found digital nomads that spanned 5 decades. I found him in the 80s. I found a digital nomad in the 90s, early 2000s, 2010s. And then, all of us traveling
Wow.
now are traveling in the 2020s. And it really became a how-to book, but it's like a love letter to the movement, telling all
Hmm.
these stories of people who found themselves in really unusual places, doing
Right.
spectacular things because of this amazing light bulb moment that everyone had kind of independently. Now it's more of like a social light bulb moment. Like the pandemic was like
Mm.
society having a light bulb moment that you can actually
Absolutely.
work online, but like Stephen K. Roberts in the 80s, he had that light bulb moment on his own. And then in the 90s, Rob, oh gosh, I'm forgetting his last name. He had that light bulb moment in the 90s. And then all these people in the early 2000s who weren't connected in any way, and they
Mm.
all thought, I can make this happen. And
Wow.
yeah, everyone did for
That's
themselves.
yeah. That's. I mean, when you said you found someone from the '80s, like, what was that like for them? Like, what did you? What was your biggest takeaway from your maybe conversation with this person from the '80s, 2000s, from these different generations? Give me one takeaway from this, periods of times, or what they took away that you learned in your process.
Yeah, I interviewed Steven several times, and we kept in touch while I was writing. And he had a quote because he's also a writer, and on his
Okay.
website he had a quote that said, "You can't just dabble in passion; it's all or nothing."
Hmm.
And I think that is the most profound, like such a profound way to approach life. And his journey started in '83 with the first ever portable computer, and
What?
yeah, it was in his one of his computers, maybe two of his computers. I think he told me it was two. Are now living in the computer science and history and technology museum. Okay, I'm butchering the name of that museum, but they're in a
That's
museum.
fine. I mean, I would tell people to go, pick up the book and, go read it. But yeah, I just wanted
Yes,
to give
okay.
from a first person perspective, but please go on.
Yeah, it's just sorry, I'm going on and on. It was just a very cool story. And that signaled like the start of this kind of silently signaled the start of this, yeah, societal
Mm,
realization that we can work. Those of us who want to can work from anywhere. And that's beautiful,
yeah,
whether it's like, an island or, your partner's bedside whenever they're ill,
yeah,
or family, staying with family. It's about so much more than travel. It's about opportunity and what you offer
yeah,
yourself, kind of.
yeah. That's pretty interesting. I mean, writing a book is no small thing. You said you enjoyed 85% of it. I'm pretty sure that those 15% must have been something, huh?
Oh, yeah, there were some chapters, like the money chapter was very hard for me. I don't like to think about money very much, so that was hard. And yeah, that was the most challenging chapter. It was talking about money and how much do you
Yeah.
need and how do you crunch those numbers.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I don't like thinking about the numbers as well. I just want to, have a lot of money and just travel and not think about, how much a flight ticket costs. I think we all want to do that. So
Yes.
you, you're, of course, I mean, you're a freelance writer, and that's how you've been able to, you've built your life around it as your, source of, revenue and, sustenance. And what was it like in the beginning? You started writing as a freelance, but that turned into something substantial. Uh, Talk to me about that journey and how that came to be and that transitioning to maybe like a hobby writer to maybe like a serious writer who can now say like what, I am a writer full time, because not a lot of people get to say that. I mean, even if you do say that, we'll think, okay, you're a writer, okay, fine. I mean, you're probably starving or something. So tell me
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
The starting point was taking any gig I could get, taking any
Hmm.
writing opportunity, no matter how poor of a fit it was or how, unequipped I was, like the subject matters were totally foreign. And now I get to be really picky. And I also have like regular contracts with really big companies, which is cool. Like HubSpot is, I can't believe I'm I'm a writer for HubSpot now. And years ago, I was
Wow.
learning from HubSpot a lot, taking their free courses. And I would say the biggest difference, or the thing that really got me from that like A to Z point, is writing for myself. I started a blog
Hmm.
called Writing from Nowhere, and I started writing on my own and publishing. And I was like trying to write for other publications for free just to practice. And I couldn't get people to publish my work. My emails were never
Hmm.
returned. And I thought, why am I waiting for someone to give me the opportunity that I can just give myself? So I
Right.
started writing for my own website. And that was the biggest catalyst. After you write, 50,000 words for yourself,
Words.
100,000 words
Right.
on your own website, it's kind of that 10,000 hours concept that a lot of people
Right.
say, you do something for 10,000 hours, you're going to be great at it. And I think there's a
Absolutely.
lot of truth to it.
Hmm. Interesting. So you went from writing a blog, and now you say you write for HubSpot. I mean, at what point did you realize that you had had a big break? Can you remember precisely what that moment
Mm.
was, or those moments, maybe days or weeks and months, where you're thinking, "Wow, maybe this could become something," or "I can't believe how big this has gotten for me."
Yeah, I had an editor that I wrote for tell me that I was the best freelance writer she had ever worked with. And
Wow.
I almost didn't believe it because I thought I'm just doing what everybody else is doing. And I still to this day wonder if she just had bad luck with the unreliable freelance writers, because I do not think I'm special. I just love writing and I like making things. I don't think I have anything. I mean, I often over deliver. Maybe that's, I often deliver articles that are like, they're always longer than purchased. They always have more images. I really like
Hmm.
people, when every article that a client opens, to feel like a present, they think, wow, this is
Yeah.
so nice. So I put a lot in, and I know I do put more in than other people because I talk to other writers who write for the same companies, and they're not, I spend so much more time, and I do consider it to be, sharpening my craft. That was kind of the light bulb. I thought I'm just checking the boxes, but then being told that I was going above, and I wanted to go above and beyond, and hearing someone reflect that back to me, I
Mm.
thought, okay, this is like I can do this on a larger scale here, I think.
Right, right. And I mean that's such a profound moment, especially when someone gives you that validation. Most of the time we're so blind to our own excellence. I think there's a word for it. I think it's proximity bias or something
Mm,
like that, where you're just too close to yourself or to other people that you can't notice either the good traits or their faults. And you just
mm.
have to zoom out a little bit and just realize that. I think it happens to the best of us. And now I think you've been a full-time writer for how long now?
Well, I guess I have kind of have like a side hustle to my writing that's
Right.
Pinterest management, which is
Ah,
kind of like a
interesting.
whole other topic, but I did that for 4 years, and then I picked up writing. I guess I picked up writing very steadily 2 years ago. I got back
Two
into
years
it, but I
ago.
started writing 10 or 11 years ago. That was at the
Yeah.
very beginning. I started writing for my university newspaper, and then the local paper, and then I wrote at every job I had. I wrote for the website, and it was something I always did. And people would say, "Hey, you're good at that." And I would say, if I could give like a piece of advice to my younger self, it would be, listen whenever people tell you that you're good at something, because
Hmm.
people see. I love how you said that proximity bias. People can shine that light on your skills for you in a way that we
Right.
can never do for ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now I mean, you're full-time writer. I guess my question is like, how do you, structure your days in such a way that, because what we discussed earlier about, people still struggling to find balance between, travel and work, it's ever present, especially in the digital nomad community. I've met so many people, while traveling in hostels, even as I've gotten better myself at being in the moment and just enjoying it. And I just don't think I have enough, or my advice is good enough, or maybe like my experience is somewhat dissimilar to theirs, that my advice wouldn't necessarily fit into their lifestyle. So it's just kind of, it's just kind of nice to have like an aggregated like advice from different people in different fields. So this is just something I try to ask, everyone that I speak with. Like, how do you do it? I mean, how do you do it? And you and you and you, so we
Yeah.
can have sort of like not just you know, my own echo chamber, so everyone can just kind of like,
Yeah.
pitch in one way or the other, and maybe at that point, all of those ideas coalesce into something more substantial that can apply to a lot more people. So how do you structure your days? How are you able to, be here and there in different time zones and be able to, manage clients and have deliverables and whatnot? What is that like for you?
I want to preface this by saying that it took me 4 years to get good at
Mm,
this. Four. Like,
wow.
that has to be a long time. Like, that has to be longer than average. But it took me 4 years of struggling to manage my workload and kind of ending up in these cycles of, oh, I'm so free. And oh my gosh, I'm being crushed by deadlines. This like
Mm,
horrible roller coaster. But now I have learned what works for me, which is scheduling blocking out my weeks and saying by the end of this week, I need to have these 5 things done, and I can do them in
mm,
any time, in any way. And if I want to take Monday through Thursday off to go explore, then I can do that as long as I'm completely confident that I have enough time to fit those tasks in. I
right.
couldn't do the day to day. I know a lot of people do that. Like, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and do this task, and
Mm,
I'm not going to be distracted. And for me, that just didn't work because it feels a little bit counterintuitive to the travel lifestyle where it's like a really nice day and you want to
yeah.
go out, or you like bump into someone in Mexico where we were stayed the last month. We were in Progreso, which is this coastal town. And every time we went to this one grocery store, we met other people, like other expats or travelers, and
Yeah.
we made plans with them. Like, we would literally go to the grocery store and have plans for dinner that night. It
Mm.
felt hilarious. I don't know why. Some magic about that grocery store. And
Grocery store.
I couldn't possibly have controlled my day. Like, I can't do that. I can't say, well, I said I
Right.
would do this tonight. And even though it's not due for a week, I'm gonna do it anyway. So I need that flexibility and to go with the flow. Like, for me, the flow is very important. I know it's not important
Mm,
for everyone. And some people say you can't follow the flow. Like, that's kind of my husband's thing. He's more like decide and execute. I am not that
yeah.
person. So seeing how you work,
Likewise.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's really important because, for me, very similar to yours, the first time that I really, thought, what, I'm just going to say F it. I'm just, going to drop it. I don't care whatever happens afterwards. I was at a restaurant in Albania, actually in Tirana, and I was standing in line because I was myself. I'd been in my Airbnb for days, and I just, what, I'm just going to take a walk, go to a restaurant, go eat some good food. And I was standing in line because it's like the most popular restaurant in town, pretty much. You Google it, it's the first one that comes up. And I just stood in
Okay.
line, and there was this guy behind me, and it was apparently standing alone as well. So I got a table for two, whereas it was just me. And I just turned around to him, like, do you want to join? We can share a table if you want. And it was like, yeah, absolutely. What's your name? We shared our names, and oh, are you also traveling? Yeah, I'm traveling. We sat down, and the next week, I mean, a few days after that, we rented a car and we drove for the next 1 week, just traveling around Albania, the Albanian coast, something that I would never have done. I mean, a
Uh,
few weeks prior, I would just be like, so scared to just leave my laptop behind and just go on a trip and just F off,
oh.
like, like a lot of people would say. So I think, getting into the flow is not something like just following the flow is not something that comes naturally to a lot of people, including myself. I
Mm.
mean, I learned to learn to enjoy the moments, and that's not something that is easy to to adapt to one's lifestyle if it's not already there. And you've spoken a lot about your partner. I know a lot of people, nomadic, couple who travel a lot. I mean, you got into your relationship, I guess you said 1 month after you started traveling. And, to some, they would think, oh, that's too early. I just, want to travel a little bit. I just want to enjoy and see what's out there. What was the quick decision like for you, and why did you make that, if I may ask?
Well, okay, a quote. I have like quotes that I really. I'm a big
I
quotes
love quotes.
person. There's a quote from Bill Murray that was also became kind of a bit of a motto around that time of my life, which is "Be available for life to happen." And
Mm,
I had to tell myself that meeting my husband, we met, yeah, a month into traveling, and we were just friends, but we traveled so we met in Guatemala and we traveled south overland to Panama. So all through Central. And I was actually going back to the US, and yeah, we decided to try to make it work. So then I bought a ticket to Colombia and met up with him there. And then, yeah, I mean, you just know a lot of people, there's a lot of romance. If you're in a
Yeah.
hostel, you will hear, you will witness, you will see it happening, you will see the
Absolutely.
romance. Travel romance is a bit intense, more intense than normal romance. But
Yes.
yeah, I had to be available for life to happen. I didn't
Yeah.
expect to move to the Netherlands or, yeah, I didn't even
And I'm just going to
necessarily.
probe a little bit. When you said, you decided to make it work, was it like a conversation or just like, we just, a lot of people, oh, we just knew we wanted to make it work. Did you have a conversation about this or was it like two hearts speaking, to each other?
Well, we thought we were saying goodbye forever, and that was the moment where we, yeah, shared that we had stronger feelings for each other than just friends.
Mm,
And it was, yeah, I mean, you have to make a lot of hard decisions, a lot of decisions, I will say, whenever you're on the road. Like, if you're nomadic and you don't have a home base, you're always deciding, where am I going to go next? How long am I going to stay?
right.
Where am I going to stay? What am I going to eat? You're deciding all of this, and that also bleeds into your relationships. I made friends. Do I want to travel with them? Could
Right.
this person
Absolutely.
be someone special in my life? And I don't know how to. I don't know how that translates for other people in terms of travel romance. I haven't met many other people who have, married their travel
Yeah,
love. But a lot
I
of
was
people have
just
it though.
yeah, I was just talking to someone in the last episode, Italia. I mean, she had almost very similar experience. She was traveling, met her now husband, and they've been married for a couple of years now. So I don't meet a lot, but when I do meet a lot, I like to, learn as much as I can from that experience. As a single man, maybe there's something I can, learn there, because we all struggle with these feelings and, these moments, and you just don't know because you don't know if it's actually a thing. But now that I know it's a thing, maybe we'll see some changes here, but we don't know. Anyway, what was, you've traveled together. I've seen quite a bit of relationship stories and people saying it's hard, traveling with a partner. You get to know each other intensely over like a very short period of time. They say if you want to know someone, travel with them and you will learn a
Yes.
lot. Is that the case for you? And what was the learning like? What did you learn that, because obviously you're still together now. That means you must have accepted some things about each other and just learned so much about each other. Talk to me about that a little bit. I'm pretty sure people are interested in this kind of things.
Okay, I don't think I've ever talked about this in publicly before. I've never been asked about my relationship. Well, yeah, whenever you're traveling, you are together all the time. Like, I actually had
Mm,
to justify this on my immigration paperwork because whenever I moved to the Netherlands, I was sponsored on the partnership visa, and you have to explain that you're a real couple because I
mm,
guess every country is just used with people trying to pretend to be
absolutely.
couples. And we hadn't been together. We only known each other a few months. And I wrote on there, we have been together every moment since we met. We eat together, and even in hostels, whenever we were, just friends, they are sleeping in the bunk above you in the hostel. You are
Right.
together constantly. And to spend, I think we spent about, I think, 5 or 6 months together nonstop, and to never get sick of being together. I mean, that was, yeah, it wasn't hard for me. It wasn't a question. I was really aware that this is it. And even moving to the Netherlands, he went back to teaching. He was a high school teacher, and we didn't like being apart. We wanted to
Mm,
spend, we were used to being together. And
yeah.
I told him, I'm going to start an online business. And because I was still freelancing kind of as just a means to an end. And I told him, I'm going to make it a real business, and then you can quit teaching and we can spend all of our time together running the business.
Mm,
And I did. 2 years after that, he retired from teaching and he joined the business full time. And now
wow.
I've never once gotten sick of Berrien. No, it's not been one day in the last 6 years. So,
Wow.
yeah,
That
I don't
is
know
that
if
is
that's
really
a good
sweet.
answer.
I mean, it's yeah, it's everything and more. That's a very thoughtful response, and I mean, I'm glad that you found your person and you have that kind of relationship. It's what I believe most people aspire to, and so now you've been traveling around for a while. Are you now like nomadic? Is it something you plan into your lives? Like, how do you, plan that lifestyle out? Because sometimes, people just want some time to settle down. Like the phase that I'm in right now. I mean, I've been in the U.S. for almost 2 months, and I plan to be here for another month, maybe two, and just see how things go. How do you plan that out? As a couple, sometimes you just want to slow down a little bit. Some people like to go fast. Some people like to go slow. What's that like for you guys?
I think, well, right now we're in a season of travel where we had a home base in the Netherlands. We traveled often. I mean, we were abroad 3 months out of the year. I think that's probably, we still had our home base because I was required to for my immigration process. So we had our apartment. We had this one room apartment, that we ran our business from and saved as much money as we could to travel in our free time. But yeah, now we're fully nomadic, and life just goes through seasons. That was a season of like growing herbs and getting book collections, and my very own's a musician playing guitar at home, and now we're in a season
Hmm.
of travel. And whenever we feel like we need to change, we adjust the speed. I think that's kind of the big thing. If you're fully nomadic, you can
Right.
say, I'm done. I need a home base. I need a couch that's mine. I need to know where I'm going to the grocery store every day. And
Absolutely.
for us, that comes down to speed. Like we often stay places for a month at a time, and that doesn't feel chaotic or hectic or busy. It feels
Mm,
like by the end of that month, it feels like 3 months.
yeah.
Because it's still new. You're still traveling. You're like, uh, you know. Like in Mexico, we were still experiencing something new every day. Whenever we went to the grocery store, we would take a different road back or try to turn down an alley that we hadn't been down before because we wanted to always be experiencing something new. But you kind of have that hometown feeling everywhere of, oh, we've been living here for a while now. Even if it's been a
Right.
week or two, you settle in so quickly. So I think the speed is the most powerful thing you have to, whenever you're feeling worn out or over or understimulated, adjust the speed at which you travel. I think it can change everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you said that very accurately, and yeah, I think when you travel, that often you gotta have some skill, I would say, uh, to put your life in check, either from the financial standpoint, mental health, physical health, some of those things. I mean, for you, what would you say are some of the things that you practice that helps you keep yourself healthy, either mentally or physically, or in your romantic relationship? What are some of the things that you would just that you can touch on for people who are in any of these phases of their lives, or trying to look after any of these aspects of their lives?
I think gratitude is really important because if you're not happy at home and then you're traveling, you're going to find another reason to eventually not be happy.
Right.
And some aspect about your current situation you really aspired for. Like you were
Mm,
dying to move into this apartment, and then one day,
yes.
you realize you haven't thought about how lucky, wow, it's great to be here in a long time. So I think building up a muscle of gratitude and consciousness, always being in a
Mm,
constant feedback loop with yourself, not just saying I'm in a bad mood, or I'm not feeling this, I'm not, I want to go somewhere else. You
right.
have to reflect on, why are you feeling this way and what do you need? And um, I think that's the only way to really live this lifestyle, to be really aware. You have to tune into yourself a lot more than I would say kind of in the normal day-to-day life, because the monotony of like going to work every day in the same place, driving in the same roads in the same car, you are that routine. Whenever your routine
Right.
is removed, you are left with your emotions a lot in like a loud
Absolutely.
way.
Yeah.
So listen to them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like how you say that. I mean, when your routine is removed, like you're left with the emotions, and that's so true. Like I've never thought about it in that sense, because you find yourself, especially when you're on the road traveling and doing all those things, you find yourself like having moments of self-reflection a lot. Like now you don't have like your regular bills that you used to have. Your apartment is gone, your car is gone, you have car note, insurance, and all the things. What have you got left? Okay, to work and your personal time. Either you spend it working, or you're just like laying on the couch, just exploring places. You're back, you sit on the couch again by yourself, maybe with some friends. You've had a few drinks, you retire to your apartment, and you just have time to think a lot about what really matters, your values, like what do you want to prioritize in your life. And I think, I mean, I just needed to highlight that, because I've never thought about it in a sense, because you have those intense moments of just straight up just thinking and thinking. And I think that's what really happens because you're just left with yourself and your thoughts and whatnot. I think, yeah, that's really good. That's a really good point. Yeah, I just want to talk about like, I mean, just generally the digital nomad movement because I'm seeing a lot of of course, it's growing bigger than ever, and at the same time, you've had some, I would say, some veteran nomads like yourself and some other people that I've spoken with, just kind of thinking it's at a point where maybe it's plateaued a little bit. I just want to get your general thoughts on the digital nomad movement itself. Where do you think it's at right now? And looking into the future, do you think it's like the future of living and the future of work? Do you think people will be doing this for a long time? I just want to get your general thoughts and ideas on the movement itself.
I think that the movement is here to stay forever, but so many people tried it after the pandemic. People who maybe would have not otherwise gone for a nomadic,
Mm,
experience. They thought, well, I'm working online now. My role is fully remote now permanently. So I'm going to go. And I think a lot of people were unprepared to be digital nomads because they
right,
only saw the positives.
right.
And it's hard to look at social media and to know how much is reality. And
Mm,
what's like, I always think of it like everything that you see is true. And I think that the lifestyle is even better than it's pictured online. But what's
wow.
not pictured is like being alone in a hospital room in a
Right.
foreign country
Mm,
and missing a funeral back home and all of these life, it's the same like road, it's life's same potholed highway. You are going to
yeah,
have all the same problems, but now you're going to have them in another country. And I think that the highs are incredibly high, but the lows are also lower because getting sick in a different country is worse than getting sick in your own country.
absolutely.
And being lonely in a country where you don't speak the language or have any friends is worse than being lonely at home. So
Oh,
it's that intensity that I think makes people I think people aren't prepared. So I'm not surprised whenever I read these headlines. Sometimes these kind of like snappy,
yeah,
clickbait headlines of I became a digital nomad for 6 months and it ruined my life or I hated it.
right.
And I read it and I think, yeah, you were probably you were really unprepared, I think. And that's why for me in the book, it was really important to be really honest about the highs and the lows. Because a lot of people talk about leaving, quotes, normal life behind. Like,
Hmm.
normal life is garbage and let's throw it away and go be travelers. And in reality, whenever normal life is a good thing and traveling is a good thing, and whenever you choose travel over normal life, you lose as well. It's not all positives,
Right.
like you lose the ability to go to a doctor that you can fluently speak to, and you lose a lot of things. So
Absolutely.
it's not fair. The image is not complete that
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
see.
It's almost like we're trying to make, it's like we're making unfair comparisons between our normal life and life on the road. And I was reading an article a few months ago where someone, I think it was a TikTok, and there was this lady who, no, I think it was a Twitter thread. It was a Twitter thread, and she
Okay.
said something along the lines of, I don't get how people travel this long or this much and, paint all the glamorous aspects of it. Like, I just tried traveling for 2 weeks and I can't believe people work from a 15-inch MacBook Pro. Like, I could never do that. I'm like, okay, yeah, because you've worked 10 years in a regular office space with like three monitors. That's what your work requires. And now you're on the road. Of course, yeah, you shouldn't expect that you're going to have the same flexibility or the same convenience that you will on three monitors on a 13-inch MacBook Pro. So that's not necessarily a, a con of traveling. It's just a lifestyle adjustment that you have to make, and I see
Yes.
stuff like this, different examples of, things like that. Like, oh, Airbnbs don't have utensils and things like that. Yeah, of course. If you
Yep.
want to leave it an Airbnb, plan to make some adjustments or go to the store and get yours if you're planning to stay for 3 months or something like that. So I think it's the unfair
Yeah.
adjustment. I mean, unfair comparison that really gets me. Like, in my feelings a little bit like, no, that's not fair. Like you can't say
Mm,
that. You can't make these comparisons, And I'm glad you mentioned that as well. So it's what I just tell people. Like I have a YouTube channel. I mean, on my YouTube channel, I talk a lot about the nomadic lifestyle and tips like this. And I think it's really important for people to understand that you cannot make like it's like comparing apples and oranges. It doesn't work that way.
yes.
So
Yeah.
so that's just that. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to share about? I guess your one thing I like to talk about as well is your favorite countries. Some people want to start a nomadic lifestyle, and they're looking at places to start. Do you have any tips or ideas on beginner nomad locations, and if you're a little bit
Mm.
advanced, where you should go? I think these are some of the fun, interesting things that people want to learn about when they listen to podcasts or read blogs. So, what are your top three, I would say, destinations for anyone who's starting out and for anyone who's looking for, a different type of life, maybe like from Eastern Europe to Latin America? What are the uniqueness of these places? Just go on.
Wow, that's a hard question. I
I
guess
know.
before I list specific questions, I would say that like the best thing you can do, I think, is find contrast to
Hmm.
what you have now. Like contrast, like you can't go from tropical island to tropical island and still notice how warm the water is and how blue the water is. You get numb to it, but then like whenever you fly in, you're like, wow, it's so bright. Those flowers on
Right.
the sidewalk. You see everything because it's contrasting to what you normally see. So I would say contrast is your best friend in terms of like speed. Like, is New York versus, a sleepy Greek island?
Right.
So, and climates. And so that's what I would, that's my big 2 cents about choosing a destination. But I love Mexico and Guatemala. Those are really nice countries to be in. And there's so much in Europe. I can't even think about where has been a favorite, but Greece is really nice to work in. Spain, in Eastern Europe, yeah, I've only spent like about a month in Eastern Europe so far, and I'm excited to go back. We were there in May, and then we're going back in 2 weeks. We're going to start traveling that way again. So, yeah, that's a really, really hard question. I wish I had thought about it
Yeah.
before we talked.
Yeah, I mean, because I love to ask these questions because, like, I love to make draw comparisons between these places, and I get a lot of questions about, oh, what is it like in Albania? What is it like in Georgia? I spent a lot of time in
Mm,
Mexico. Like, should I go to Mexico or this or that? I'm just like, I mean, I don't know. It depends on what you like and what you
mm,
consider as your ideal scenario or ideal weather or ideal food or your how well you can adapt to new languages and new cultures. So I just leave that conversation open ended, just like you've done. So I wasn't expecting like a hard line answers
yeah,
like this
good.
is where you should go for this or that. It's just more of what do you enjoy? What kinds of food do you enjoy? What kind of people do you like to interact with? So that's interesting. So tell the audience about your book, where they can get it, how they can connect with you, and if there's anything you'd like to throw in there for people to know about you.
Yeah, well, my book is called How to Be a Digital Nomad, Build a Successful Career While Traveling the World. And that is released January 3rd in most of the world, and it's January 30th in North America. And you can find it on and a lot of big book retailers in their online shops: Target, Barnes and Noble, Amazon. They have it all online, and yeah, in person we'll see where it shows up. Where the book will appear on shelves, I don't have that information yet, but I would love to talk to anyone who's interested. It's a how-to step-by-step guide to make it really feel very approachable and kind of demystify the lifestyle. Take some of the like mystique and take some of the mystery out of it in a good way, that you feel like you're confidently choosing something that's right for you instead of just taking a guess at something that feels cool and adventurous. But
Yeah.
yeah, if anyone wants to talk, they can email me at kayla@writingfromnowhere.com. I'm happy to talk to anyone about any aspect of the lifestyle. And yeah, it would be really great to connect.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I will add all that information, the show notes as well. I love to pick up books. I was at the airport like 3 weeks ago, and I just found this book from I think Lonely Planet on the Digital Nomad Handbook or something like that. Even though it's
Mm,
what I would consider like information that I already know, I was reading through it. I'm like, oh, this was one of the same things I talk about in my YouTube channel. Maybe like word for word sometimes, and I would love to, I just love to pick up books about it to know, just learn different perspectives, how people view that lifestyle. So go check it out wherever you can get it from. I think it's on Amazon right now. I have it open in my tab, and
yes,
you
it
can have it
is.
in paperback, in hardcover, whatever you want. So yeah, thanks, Kayla, for jumping on the podcast. It's still early morning for me. I know it's a little bit late where you are right now. Is it?
Thank you so much for having me, Daniel. It was so fun talking.
Yeah, absolutely. I will leave all the information in the show notes, and hopefully I can, bring it back at some point. Or I'm heading down Mexico in, I guess, a week for Dia de los Muertos.
Ooh.
It's a huge celebration. Will you be around there at that time for the Dia de Dead?
No, I'm back in Europe actually, so
Oh, yeah, you said that. For some reason I thought you were.
that's all right. My mind is also still in Mexico.
I love Mexico so much. It's like one of my favorite places, and I go. I spent last year. I was there for like 6 months out of the year, so
Yeah.
it's interesting. Well, thanks again for coming. My regards to your husband. Hopefully, we can have you both on
Oh,
the
thank
podcast
you.
soon at some point.
Oh, I would love that. He would maybe love that. I'm not sure.
That's
He's
fine.
shy.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, we'll just have it audio
We'll talk
only and
about
not video. Cool. I'd love that. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Kayla Ihrig. Again, if you did, I would greatly appreciate your feedback. It really helps this channel, this podcast a lot. And if you're listening on any podcast app, either that's Apple, Spotify, make sure to follow, leave a review. On Apple, you can scroll to the very bottom. And on Spotify, you can just tap any of the stars button on the Spotify app, and it will prompt you to leave a review. On Apple and Spotify, it's pretty straightforward. And on YouTube, if you're watching this, please don't forget to subscribe. I really appreciate it. Again, check out the links in the description and in the show notes if you are a digital nomad and just want to check out some of the tools that I use in traveling cheaply, efficiently, and affordably. I greatly appreciate it. Again, my name is Danielle, and this is another episode of the Nomad Entrepreneur Podcast on YouTube and Spotify and Apple, everywhere. I appreciate you listening and tuning in today, and I will talk to you in the next one. Take care now. Bye.